Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. Let's dig in. Here's what's been going on in Russia in the last 24 hours. Russia's big move over the weekend was not really about one missile, one night of strikes, or one battlefield sector. The real story is Moscow trying to turn frustration on the battlefield into political pressure on Ukraine, Europe, and the US. The Kremlin reached for the loudest tool in the shed, a nuclear-capable Oreshnik intermediate-range ballistic missile launched during a major strike on Kyiv's region. That is not just a weapon choice. That is messaging. Loud, reckless, and very on-brand for a Kremlin that still thinks intimidation is a substitute for strategy. European leaders saw it that way immediately. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas called the Oreshnik launch a political scare tactic and reckless nuclear brinkmanship. French President Emmanuel Macron, German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul, UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper, and Austria's Beate Meinl-Reisinger all condemned the attack. Their message was basically, nobody is confused here. Moscow is using nuclear-capable systems to rattle the room because the conventional war is not delivering the clean win Putin promised himself. It is diplomatic theater with real casualties, and the audience is not clapping. The timing matters. This came as U.S.-brokered peace talks between Kyiv and Moscow were stalling. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the negotiations were not fruitful and that Washington was not interested in an endless cycle of meetings that go nowhere. Meanwhile, reporting from people close to the Kremlin suggests Putin has lost faith in Donald Trump's ability to force Kyiv into giving up territory. That is a major shift. Moscow once seemed to think Washington might help deliver Donbass at the negotiating table. Now Putin appears to be leaning back into escalation, pressure, and the old Soviet greatest hits album. Threaten, deny, accuse, repeat. Putin's core objective has not changed. Sources close to the Kremlin say he still believes Russia can capture all of Donbass by the end of 2026. Ukrainian and European intelligence-linked accounts suggest Russian generals may be feeding him overly rosy updates, the kind of boss, everything is going great reports that have ruined many an empire, company, and group project. If Putin is being told victory is right around the corner, then these big symbolic strikes may be designed to reinforce a narrative of momentum that the battlefield is not actually providing. Russia claimed the strike was retaliation for an attack in Starobilsk, in Russian-controlled Luhansk. Russian authorities said Ukraine hit a dormitory at the Starobilsk College of Luhansk Pedagogical University on May 22, killing 21 people, many of them young women. Reuters visited the site on a Russian Foreign Ministry-organized media trip and saw forensic experts working through the wreckage, but could not independently verify what happened. Ukraine denied targeting civilians and said it struck an elite drone command unit in the area. Dmitry Medvedev then used the allegation to call for strikes on Kyiv's symbols, which is a pretty revealing phrase. That is not the language of military necessity. That is punishment politics. And that punishment hit politically loaded locations. Ukrainian officials said Russia damaged the foreign ministry, the Cabinet of Ministers building, the National Art Museum, the National Chernobyl Museum, the Lukyanivsky Market, residential areas, schools, a water facility, and a business center. The WHO said debris damaged windows at its Kyiv office, which also houses other UN agencies. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said the Foreign Ministry building had been damaged for the first time since the Second World War. Russia's defense ministry denied targeting civilian infrastructure and claimed it hit military industry, command posts, intelligence facilities, and air bases. That denial landed about as smoothly as a bad karaoke version of Back in the USSR. For scale, Ukraine said Russia launched 90 missiles and 600 drones overnight on May 24. That included the Oreshnik, Kinzhal, and Zircon hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and large drone waves. Ukraine said it intercepted most of the drones and many missiles, but some got through, killing at least 4 people nationwide and injuring roughly 100. The tactical detail matters because it shows the strategy. Russia is using mass drone waves to stress Ukraine's air defenses, then pushing more difficult missiles through the gaps. It is not elegant. It is brutal math, and it pressures Ukraine's limited Patriot interceptor supply. Ukraine's answer is to hit Russia's arteries. Kyiv and the SBU reported strikes on oil, logistics, naval, drone, fuel, and ammunition infrastructure. That included the Tamoneftegaz oil terminal in Krasnodar Krai, a major Black Sea export facility, and the Torovo production and dispatching station in Vladimir Oblast, which Ukraine said helps move fuel toward Moscow area depots and airports, including Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, and Vnukovo. A Russian governor acknowledged an infrastructure fire near Kamyshkovo. Ukraine also reported strikes on naval assets at Novorossiysk. Strip away the tactical fog, and the strategic picture is simple. Ukraine is trying to make the war more expensive, more disruptive, and more visible inside Russia. That is where Putin's domestic problem starts to get spicy. Reporting described rising disappointment among Russian elites as the war drags on. The economy weakens, taxes rise, inflation bites, businesses close, and internet restrictions disrupt daily life. Mobile internet shutdowns across Moscow and other regions are being justified as defenses against Ukrainian drones and sabotage. The FSB's second service reportedly oversees the restrictions. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov and First Deputy Presidential Administration Chief Sergei Kiriyenko reportedly tried to talk Putin out of the harshest internet controls, but no dice. As one Kremlin insider put it, Russia is drifting closer to North Korea on connectivity. That is not exactly the luxury imperial future the Moscow elite thought they were signing up for. The old Putin bargain was simple: stay out of politics, and daily life stays stable. That bargain is wobbling. People are dealing with higher prices, disrupted businesses, blocked apps, internet outages, and a war that keeps leaking back into Russia through fires, drones, sabotage scares, and mobilization anxiety. Nobody in the reporting suggests a coup is around the corner. But the mood has changed. Even pro-war Russian mill bloggers criticize the Kyiv strike as expensive and symbolic, arguing the money and resources would be better spent on frontline needs like FPV drones. When the cheerleaders start side-eyeing the playbook, the sideline is getting tense. Russia's internal security machine is also in high gear. The FSB claimed it prevented a terrorist plot in Belgorod involving a woman allegedly manipulated by Ukrainian special services into retrieving a bomb for detonation in a crowded place. Russian outlets also reported corruption cases in strategic sectors. A Samara fuel and energy contractor accused of stealing more than 100 million rubles by passing off old equipment as new, and an alleged bribery network tied to illegal gold mining licenses in the Transbaikal territory. Some of this is counterintelligence. Some of it is wartime narrative management. Some of it is the state reminding everyone who is holding the keys. There were also pressure points beyond Ukraine. Russia's FSB said magnetic mines were found on the Liberia-flagged tanker Arrhenius at Ust-Luga after it arrived from Antwerp for liquefied petroleum gas, and Russian investigators claimed the devices were made in a NATO country. That allegation could become useful Kremlin material in the Baltic, where Russia loves a murky sabotage story with just enough fog to make everyone nervous. Kazakhstan, meanwhile, said it would not enforce a court decision allowing Ukraine's Naftogaz to collect a $1.4 billion arbitration award from Gazprom, arguing the dispute lacked a legal connection to Kazakhstan. And in the UK, Nigel Farage remained under pressure to provide evidence for his claim that Russian state-linked hackers compromised his phone, email, and bank accounts before disclosure of a £5 million gift from crypto billionaire Christopher Harburn. Thanks for listening and being part of this community. If you're finding value here, a review, comment, or share helps more people stay informed. We also publish a daily intel brief on Substack at restrictedhandling.substack.com, where we go deeper on Russia, China, Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK. Stay safe and have a great week.